Okay, I need to get the slideshow going.
You're already up to 18. 19.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I don't know why this is showing. Jan, are you seeing my controls at the top of the screen? Okay. Welcome. Okay, welcome to the second public hearing. This is a public benefit hearing for a proposal that was voted to put forward from the selectmen based on an RFP from the Gilsum Broadband Advisory Committee, which was appointed to the selectmen to look at options and make a recommendation. I'm Rob Mitchell. I'm the chair of the Gilsum Broadband Advisory Committee. One of our select persons, Sally Struble, where are you, Sally? Oh, sorry, I got my reading glasses on. Is also on the committee, as is Karen Wheeler and Vicki Ayer and Jan Federia. I'm going to go through these fairly fast. So I want to encourage anyone who has access to a computer to go ahead and look at the slides online as well. I want to leave plenty of time for people today to have questions and have comments. And we do have a hard stop no later than 7:30 when the bond hearing would need to take place. And that would happen after the selectmen vote whether or not there's a public benefit and to move forward to the bond hearing. Here today we have Tim May, Sally Struble, and Mark Farkas. They're our selectmen, select persons rather, for the Broadband Committee, whom I just mentioned, all present. And CCI representatives Rob Coaster, he's a Senior Vice President of Consumer Products, and he will be here to answer some questions. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and if you're using Zoom, use the chat feature. If you're calling in and you don't have access to Zoom on a computer, press *9. We'll see that and we'll get your question into the queue. So, why are we looking at this? We were appointed last summer by the Select Board because there's a Senate Bill 170 that allows us to explore options and get bonding to deliver high-speed internet to every residents in a town where you don't have service. There's a critical need for it. People are using the internet for work, healthcare, school, entertainment's gone to 4K streaming. There's lots and lots of things that are going on where people just need better internet connectivity. So SB 170 is a New Hampshire law. It helps rural counties or towns improve broadband internet service by paying for financing or improvements to get the infrastructure in so that you can get the internet dial tone to every home and business. That's something that doesn't happen now because for a lot of these providers, the economics just aren't there if you don't have a high density of houses in an area. This must be passed at an annual or special town meeting with the 3/5 approval of the voters. What is high-speed internet or broadband? The FCC defines it as 25 megabits per second down or 3 megabits per second up. That standard's out of date. The most recent proposal was that they move it to at least 100 megabits bits per second per direction. That is down and up. We sent out an RF request for information. Based on the information we got back, 81% of residences do not meet the 25.3 FCC designated standard for broadband. I don't know if you can see this, but most of the service is clustered right around the center of town with some offshoots. The rest of the town doesn't have much. The DSL service quality is not great. The problem with it is when you hit 18,000 feet from the switch station at the beginning of Main Street, there's no signal and it deteriorates the further away you get from that point. You get slower and slower service. So we did a survey to ask people. We got 124 64 households that responded, which is 35% of the town. And we asked what type of internet service they used, and not surprisingly, the majority of it is DSL, followed by Comcast. So we asked how people use or would like to use the internet, and as you would imagine, email, social networking. But the interesting thing is 62% of people said they need to use it to access healthcare services like telehealth. 57% want to use it to work from home, and 53% want to use it for education and training. So we also asked how satisfied they were, and 60% said they were either not satisfied or not satisfied at all with the current service they have. Just 3% said they were satisfied. Okay, so do you have difficulty doing any of the following activities? As you can imagine, some of the issues with poor performance are for people that had internet services. Pages don't load promptly, streaming or television doesn't stream very well. Uploading files is an issue if you have large documents or you're backing up your computer. What's that? Oh, I guess we're featuring Barbara. Okay, so what would they like to see improved? The two biggest complaints are speed and reliability. So then we asked if they had fiber that was competitively priced, would they be likely to subscribe? 60% said definitely, 21% said probably. So about 88% would subscribe to a high-speed broadband if it was available and competitively priced. Public benefits, obviously voice, video, and data services, more reliable. The plan we're going to discuss does not increase the taxes in town. It does increase real estate property values, which is of course important. It also makes it more enticing for businesses to come here, particularly small businesses and those that work out of a home. It also provides access to online learning and telehealth. I'm going to skip forward here. And yeah, gives everybody access to broadband, including those that have very poor service, without any taxes being used. Okay, this is a list of towns that are moving forward with plans to bring fiber broadband to every home and business. So what you're looking at here is the ones on the left, those 5 towns are all considering RFPs now. They have not made a choice. Their committees are making recommendations. The ones on the right, those are approved by the select boards, and they're up for a vote. You'll notice after each one, CCI stands for Consolidated Communications, Inc. So most of them, when they get it back, with the exception of Sullivan, have gone with Fibercast. I mean, with CCI, sorry. Sullivan went with Fibercast, which is a smaller company based out of, I think, Manchester, New Hampshire. Alstead and Hancock did not receive any bids, unfortunately, because the percentage of households that were classified as unserved was too small for it to make economic sense for the bidders. Okay, these towns have already voted to bring fiber broadband to every home and business, and some of them have completed it, some of them are still finishing up. It's thinking, whoops, I clicked on the link instead of the presentation. Bear with me for 1 minute. There we go. Okay, what's the Chesterfield deal? This is where it all started. Back in 2018, I think it was, they passed SB 170, but it was still expensive because towns had to float a bond. So with Chesterfield, they started out with a bid process, and then they negotiated a deal with Consolidated that said, if the town takes out the bond, they would guarantee to cover it for the entire 20-year period, including all costs. So the town would not have to pay the bond using taxpayer money. So they went forward with that deal, and that really sparked this whole movement. A lot of other towns have jumped on. There's now 15 towns that have similar agreements or are in the process of negotiating agreements with CCI, mostly in southwestern New Hampshire. For us to move forward with the proposal from CCI, which was the one that was chosen after the RFP process for consideration, we would need to take out a bond for $567,125. CCI would kick in $296,251. They would cover areas of town that the SB 170 bond won't let them cover. They want to cover everything because they want to be competitive and go head to head in areas where there's already service. And the total project cost would be $867,125. Again, CCI contractually would agree to pay the cost of the bond service, principal and interest over 20 years. They would also pay the costs of the bond attorney that we'll need to move forward, should we decide to do so. So there's no cost to the town for this program, and there's no effect on property taxes. If you do sign up for service, there's an $11 monthly fiber infrastructure build recovery fee built into the pricing. It's not tacked on to the end, so the pricing you're going to see will include that. And nobody's obligated to sign up. Anybody can subscribe whenever they want to. And as part of the arrangement, all of Gilsum's municipal buildings, and the library, fire department, the town garage, all of those would be connected, and there would be no charge for service at those locations. Here's the pricing. So it starts at 50 megabits per second. This is fiber to the home. People that have Comcast have fiber on the street, coaxial cable to the home. It's not the same thing. This actually has a faster capability. There's a 50 megabit per second plan, upload and download speed. It's $46 a month on their promo price. Then it goes to $61, and you can see the other prices here. And again, that bond cost recovery fee is included in the price that you see above. So again, existing customers of CCI can still stick with DSL if they would prefer to do that. And there's no data caps. Comcast just introduced data caps this month. If you exceed 1.2 terabytes of data that you've downloading while you're streaming and whatnot, you pay $10 per 50 gigabits until you hit $100 extra per month. Hopefully most of us won't do that. Okay, our bond would be the 4th lowest in the region. This is a list of, oh boy, they don't all fit on there. Let me just get back to that. You can see Marlowe, it's going to cost them $1.017 million for their bond. And they've been through the first meeting like we have here. People are pretty strongly in support of it. Same thing with Sullivan. The reason Marlowe's is so high is even though they have more people, or the same number of people in Marlowe, the square miles is bigger. So you have to run a lot more fiber. Sullivan is less. It's a small town like Gilsum. Roxbury is at 300,000. They're again a very small town. I think Troy was like 200,000, but they're only doing a tiny percentage of the town. They worked out some sort of special deal. And again, I encourage people to look online. You can review these slides. I know I'm going through them quickly. So just to sum up, 81% of the town is unserved for broadband access. By unserved, I mean they either have poor service or no service at all. There's not a high level of satisfaction. The CCI proposal would pay the full cost of the bond. No one's required to sign up. You can keep your current plan. And again, 6 towns have already approved proposals and are moving forward with construction. 11 have accepted proposals and plan to move at their town meetings this March on those. And 5 towns have received similar proposals and are currently reviewing their options right now, the RFPs that they've received. So that's where everyone is at. So, questions. Will having broadband access or access to broadband affect my property taxes? No, because it's not included in the calculations that Avatar Associates uses to assess the value of a home for property tax purposes. However, it does increase the value of a home, and there's a handout that shows exactly why that is. Generally speaking, if you don't have broadband and you have access to it, the home value can increase by as much as 3.3%, according to a study that's cited in the paper. I can make that available online too. We asked our local realtor, and he said, in my experience, broadband availability does not affect assessed value of property. It does, however, have a dramatic effect on the sale of a property as it is becoming more and more of a requirement of buyers, many of whom study, stream, or work at home. 2 homes, price the same, the one with broadband available would sell faster. Emily Bialek, I don't think she could dial in tonight, but she said to me, there was a span of time when we were considering selling our house. The potential buyers thought it was a perfect home, but decided against it when they heard about our slow internet speed. She has DSL. Okay, another question was, okay, but what if CCI were to declare bankruptcy? So this is from the proposal in white. The agreement will provide for assignment of contractual obligations, blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? That means if they go out of business or they sell, whoever buys them inherits the obligations to serve the contract. If they went Chapter 7 and liquidated, the infrastructure would come back to us, and we could then bid it out to have somebody provide the service over it. The hardest part of getting somebody to bring broadband to the town is having the pipes. So I don't think it would be a problem to get somebody else to jump in here. There are at least 5 companies I know of in the area that would be interested. I'm not too worried about that. And I also think that CCI looks pretty solid to me, and I invite anyone to look at their financial reports. They grew from $775 million in 2015. They're now a $1.35 billion company. They're rapidly building out their fiber infrastructure. Their earnings have been growing, and their net income margin in 2019 was 14.2%. That's the net income as a percentage of total revenue. Okay, what about Starlink? Starlink is currently in beta, and they plan to launch by 2025, I believe it is, 42,000 low Earth orbit satellites to deliver broadband service to unserved rural areas. They have 1,000 in place today. They hope to get 5,000 by 2025 and eventually get up to 42,000 satellites. When it's fully functional, it will support 485,000 users concurrently at about 100 megabits per second down. There are, however, 65 million people in rural America, so I'm not sure it's going to be a solution for everyone. There is somebody in Sullivan that has one. He says it works okay so far. He just has to keep the snow off the dish. They were awarded money to bring it to 35 states. The latency, which affects things like video streaming, is adequate. It's comparable to, say, a cable internet service, but not in the same range as fiber. The cost of this, you've got to buy a dish for $500, and then it's $99 a month, and that's the only option at this time. They call it the Better Than Nothing beta program, and it's intended for areas that can't get fiber or other high-speed broadband internet services. It's relatively expensive compared to terrestrial. Doesn't measure up to speed. It doesn't have that future-proofing. High-speed fiber, right now, the service that would be installed would go up to 1 gigabit per second, with 2 gigabit probably by the end of the year, they're talking about. But the capability goes all the way to 5 gigabits per second to a home, which they could do down the road. Yeah, obviously you'd have to keep a dish, clear of snow and ice. They're working on a technology. They don't have a huge army of people to go out and install these dishes, and they need a controller that will keep aiming these things at the different satellites, and they have said that this is the biggest obstacle right now. They have to figure out how to have an intelligent system that will automatically calibrate it to all these satellites. There's also been some pushback. The satellites have to be replaced every 4 or 5 years. 42,000 of them. There's 6,000 satellites on the entire planet right now, so it's a huge increase. And there's issues with, well, okay, so they're going to be replacing these every 4 or 5 years, but also astronomers are worried about not being able to, do their thing. So, is this moving too fast? I'm certainly talking fast. We formed the committee 6 months ago. The other committees met once a month. We've been meeting once a week. We've been able to move forward more quickly because we've stood on their shoulders. They had done all the groundwork for us. We had sample RFPs, sample requests for information forms, research. We interviewed them. We got all their information. And so we were able to move more quickly, which we thought was important because we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and I know people are getting really fed up that don't have good quality DSL. If the town decides to reject the proposal, then we would, if they wanted to do it again, you'd have to form a new committee and start from scratch next year and go through the same processes, which I can tell you has been a tremendous time suck, at least I think for the committee. I think you'd all agree. There's also no guarantee, if you try to do this in the future, that SB 170 won't change. These legislation change all the time. And there's no guarantee that any future proposal would guarantee to pay the bond. So those would be the risks of not going forward this year versus waiting until next year. Finally, if other towns' proposals go forward, we could end up being the only town in the area that does not have fiber to every home and business. And I think that might have a negative effect on prices. That's my own personal opinion, not based on anything other than just my own personal worry. And I don't know how many of the towns are going to move forward, but I have not heard any town so far tell me that they're facing opposition. They all seem to be moving forward. So what are the next steps? Tonight's hearing, public benefits hearing. At the conclusion of the public benefits hearing, the select board will get together and they will vote whether they determine that there's a public benefit. If they vote and they determine a public benefit, we then go into a bond hearing, and the select board votes on moving this forward to a warrant article that would appear on the ballot on March 10th at the town meeting. When it goes there, or if it goes there, a 3/5 majority would be required to pass the article. So I talked with the town that got this all started. Brad Roscoe was the chair of the Chesterfield Broadband Advisory Committee. He told me it was the first town to work with this. They started the installation in July of 2019. They had everyone connected that wanted to be by April of 2020. They said, as a company, CCI was a pleasure to work with. The performance of the fiber system has been great with high reliability and speed. It did say he lost service about 3 times in the last year for short periods of time, but he can easily stream to multiple TVs and have multiple Zoom meetings. He says he cut his own costs by going to voice over IP and getting rid of his cable television service and streaming and using UMA, which is an online voice over IP telephone system. He says the realtors in town tell me that house sales are up and have been easy since getting fiber. On the negative side, their call and customer support people had some issues, as do most customer support groups of large companies. By this, I mean their call line, not the people that actually come to your house to do the work. The people that do the installation are great. CCI has blamed this on training with some individuals, and hopefully this is no longer an issue. That's Brad Roscoe, chair of the Chesterfield Broadband Advisory Committee. Walpole, our experience working with Consolidated has been quite good. That applies to the lead up to securing a contract, as well as the now nearly complete installation of the backbone of the project. The backbone is the fiber going down all the streets. CCI is about to start connecting the fiber up to cable to individual premises. Right now, we are 2 or 3 weeks behind schedule, but frankly, given the pandemic's working constraints, I consider this a great success. That was Dennis Marcom, chair of the Walpole Broadband Advisory Committee. And again, I apologize for racing through these. Please take the time, if you can, to look at them and study the slides if you have more information. I put them online at this URL. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to introduce Rob Koester from CCI. And Rob, we are at 5 minutes to 7, and I want to leave plenty of time for people to open this up for questions.
Can do that.
Please do,
We'll switch over here real quick, and I promise to be brief because this was an awesome presentation. I've listened to a lot of these town presentations over the last 3 years that we've been doing broadband expansion. I can tell you 2 things. One is the broadband committees don't get nearly enough credit because even though there is a path for things like RFP templates and RFI templates and folks that have done this a couple of times, so there's people to lean on, it's still a tremendous amount of time for the committee. So if you get the opportunity, I'm just telling you, I've seen this in action. These committees just work like crazy on your behalf. So thank them if you get the opportunity.
thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to run through just a couple of things really quickly. This is an awesome presentation that Rob did. My name is Rob Koester. I'm with Consolidated Communications. My title this week, I think, is Senior Vice President of Product Management. So I own all of our consumer and small business products across our 23-state footprint. I'm based just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire, and I've been a New Hampshire resident for about 4 years. I am going to zoom through this fairly quickly. If I can figure out how to move the slides forward. Oh, there we go. I got it. Not a Mac guy. There we go. So just a really kind of high level view. What I'm going to do is probably focus less for the next few minutes on what the details of the proposal are, because Rob did a really good job of that. We can answer any questions you have. And we're going to kind of project into the future a little bit on if the warrant article goes through and the town votes to a positive vote, what this looks like going forward. The first thing is the implementation team. So you're going to see 3 or 4 people motoring around town if there's a positive vote. One is Jeff MacGyver. Jeff's on my team. I think he did the first public benefit meeting here in Gilsum not long ago. You'll also meet a gentleman by the name of Mike Cannon. Mike is a Texas transplant like I am as well. He's been in New Hampshire for 3 or 4 years as well. Mike runs all of our field operations. Yes, sir.
You want to stand a little bit, just so the camera can see you.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Thank you. So Mike runs all of our field operations and construction teams. So all of the guys you see that are building the fiber and that come and install it at your house and come fix it if it happens to break, those are all of Mike's guys, all local folks, and we will be around town every step of the way. I'm going to skip through a little bit of the network design, the bid. We will make this available on the town website as Rob gets the opportunity as well. So a little bit about what happens if this is a positive vote. What you see on the screen is a sample of the communication that we provide the town broadband committee. So every week or two, and that frequency varies a little bit based on where we're at in the bill plan, we'll provide the town with an update of where we're at. One of the first things that we'll do after a positive vote is give the town a map of the town, and we'll show them this is how we intend on building the network. One of the first things we usually do is try to meet with the road and bridge people to walk them through the entire build plan. So it does 2 things. One, it gives the town a really good understanding of where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, but it also provides kind of that personal relationship between the town officials and the construction crews. So if something happens, a resident has a complaint, or there's a specific area that we need to focus on, it's a great time to talk about those things. But as that build commences, we'll start giving you regular updates. The map we give you is color coded. And usually in a town the size of Gilsum, we'll probably have 2 or 3 or 4 different construction areas that may be going on at exactly the same time. We don't number them because we don't want somebody to be number 1 and somebody to be number 4. We color code them because we do things maybe in parallel in a lot of cases. So we'll provide a step-by-step linkage about where exactly we're at. Really quickly on fiber builds, there are really 4 phases to a fiber build. The first is the fiber physically being constructed. And frankly, this is the most expensive and time-consuming portion of the build. This is where we physically put fiber up on all the poles. You'll see trucks coming through. They're going to be lashing existing and new fiber cable to all the poles around town. The second thing we do is place electronics. If you know where our equipment is today, you may see it on poles around. With fiber, you'll have a new piece of equipment. It's about the size of a dorm fridge. In Gilsum, there will be 3 or 4 or 5 of those. They're called fiber distribution hubs. So big fiber cable goes to a fiber distribution hub that's about the size of a dorm fridge. And then from there, an individual fiber cable goes back to a customer's home. It's a really simple network design, and it works very, very well. We've used it all over the place. Each one of those fiber distribution hubs is a color code. So in Gilsum, there will be 2 or 3 or 4 different color codes for 2 or 3 or 4 different fiber distribution hubs. So you'll know exactly where we're at every time. Once we have the electronics placed, and the next step is splicing. So we take big fibers and we splice the glass together so the light can communicate back and forth. One of the things that wasn't covered earlier, fiber is a great technology. Frankly, copper is a pretty good technology, especially for the rural environment. It just doesn't go fast enough, far enough. The big difference between fiber and copper is fiber is not mechanical, it's light. So when a fiber optic cable comes to your house, we actually are shooting light through. So light is impervious to wind, rain, any kind of weather. Sparky the squirrel chewing through a cable, nicking it a little bit, it gets wet, you start to see your DSL service go up and down. With fiber, for better or for worse, it's either on or it's off. So if something happens and your service stops, it's really easy for our techs to troubleshoot. They take a device called an OTDR, or optical time division reflexometer. They plug it into the cable. It says you have a cable cut at 642 feet away. They walk 642 feet. They usually look for the backhoe. Apologize to any backhoe operators in the room. They know where the cable cut's at. They splice it, lights back up, you're up and working again. So resolution on fiber is much faster, and overall reliability is quite a bit higher than you'd see on copper as well. The final stage then is testing. So we all good equipment sometimes goes bad. We test for about 2 weeks, and then we start turning end user services up. That entire process from end to end, assuming a normal timeline. Public vote in March. The town then has a ton of work to do to go get bond financing. The bond usually goes out in July. Financing comes in August. Once the town vote is positive, we start assembling all the materials. We don't wait for contracts or anything like that. We assume that's enough intent. So we start assembling fiber, we start assembling electronics, so that as soon as the financing comes in, we can immediately start network design or network construction. You should typically expect to see the fiber placement take about 6 to 8 weeks in a town the size of Gilsum. You should expect to see the splicing and testing take about 6 to 8 weeks, something along those lines. So if there's a positive vote in March, again, we're projecting forward, I would expect to see construction starting in August. I would expect to see the first customer turn-ups, weather and equipment availability all on our side, probably late this year, early next year. You look at the 5 towns that went through this process last year, we had a little bit of weather and a little bit of equipment issues that delayed us by a couple of weeks. We're started to turn up those first services now, and we expect everybody who's on any kind of waiting list for us to be completely installed by the first part of the second quarter. So that's several thousand connections, frankly. So that's the kind of timeline you can be thinking about. One of the things we do as well is once the construction gets to be close to starting or the fiber placement gets close to be completed, we'll turn up a town website. So Gilsum will have its own website. Residents can go there, enter in their information. They'll get regular email status updates in addition to what we typically provide the town. We also put a pre-sign-up website there as well. We really encourage customers to sign up in advance. What that allows us to do is if we have 10 customers on Main Street, we can do all of the outside work in one shot. And then when we come in to do the inside work, we're in and out of your house pretty quickly. So we really encourage folks to do pre-sign up. Installation practices, Rob covered this, but installation is no charge. We do the installation. The one thing we will want to keep an eye on is as long as there's an existing communication path to your house, there's no cost for the install at all to you out of pocket. We take care of all of it. If you have a very, very long lane and you don't have existing CCI service or there's no poles there, you may have to get poles or conduit put in the ground. If you have concerns about that, you probably know who you are. Come and catch me after the meeting or give Rob a shout. He can put you in touch with us and we can take a look at your specific situation.
Jeff, any rental fees on the rental fees?
Yeah, we'll get to pricing here in a second. The pricing you see, so if you look at the pricing that Rob just showed, and I'm going to show you the same pricing here in just a second, it's different than the pricing on the website. We are completely revamping our fiber installation practices and our fiber product from end to end. We've heard the feedback from Brad in Chesterfield, right? So about 3 weeks ago, one of the first things we did is peeled out an existing group of customer service reps, seasoned agents, and have them and only them taking our fiber calls. We really want a premium experience for fiber. We're also reinventing our speeds and pricing. So the speeds and pricing we show you are speeds that are going to be released in the not too terribly distant future. By the time the town turns up, you'll have all of these speeds and pricing in service. One of the things we're moving away from is the old equipment rental, With fiber, you don't need any special equipment. You can go to Best Buy or Walmart and buy a piece of Wi-Fi gear, plug it in, it's going to work just fine. We will provide equipment if you want to use it. And frankly, we're going to be deploying the best of the best Wi-Fi. It's going to be $10 a month. If you don't want it, bring your own equipment, take $10 off the price. It's just that simple. Simple is really what we're after. Did that answer your question? Okay, we've seen this pricing before. Oops, went too far. It's just really, really similar, not exactly the same as the pricing you saw before. So the way to look at this is the base rate for our 50 meg service is $50. We do an introductory promotional rate for $35. The $11 fee goes on top of that. So for the first year, you'd be paying $46 a month. You don't want to use our equipment, take $10 off that price. Real simple. Year 2, that price is going to go up $15, but then it stays there. There's none of this, messing around with the bill. We're really dedicated to trying to get as transparent as humanly possible with pricing. And I'll tell you, The pricing is specifically designed to try to get as many customers as we can at 1 gig. This is a great rate for 1 gig. And if you have 1 gig in your house, you're essentially future proofing. You'll have zero bandwidth concerns forever and ever.
Jeff, could you clarify that?
You bet.
You're telling me that the $46 price, if I use my own Wi-Fi
Yeah.
router in my house that
Take-
I bought,
Yep.
it's $36?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly right. We don't throttle, we don't cap data connections, use whatever you want. And as long as I'm alive and kicking and breathing, we will never have data caps. And we do adhere to net neutrality as well. As long as you're not breaking the law, all lawful content flows through at no problem. And that's the big stuff that I had. So Rob?
All right. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open up the meeting for questions. And do we have any here?
Rob, hang on before you move on. Could you just repeat your question about the $10?
Yeah.
Yeah, other people.
Yes, okay, the question was, on the pricing slide that Rob just showed, it said $46 a month, and then there is a $10 rental fee for a Wi-Fi router, which you could buy your own.
Correct.
I have my own.
Correct.
So that means I can sign up and I could pay $36 a month,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so would anyone like to ask any questions or express any thoughts? Yes.
Hi, I would just like to ask a question. Is that price guaranteed forever or like just for a couple of years? And
Okay.
also, they can imagine water like that.
Okay, the question is that price guaranteed forever?
Yeah, so we're really trying to simplify pricing and make it super, super simple. So I'm going to use the pricing and try to remember $11 extra. So the 50 meg service would be $46 for the first year. It would go up $15 in the second year. It would stay there through the third year. Beyond that, what we typically do is small incremental price increases, but I will tell you that there's no contracts associated with these. So if you don't like it, you can go to Starlink if you so choose. Totally up to you.
Rob, I have
Thank you.
Ian here with his hand up.
Okay.
I can try this. And Abe, are you there?
Are you calling for me? My name is Abby.
Abby, sorry.
Hey, so hi, my name's Abby Hamilton. I've been a Gilsum resident since August, and I would just like to say that I fully support the bonding initiative, or at least giving the public a chance to vote. If there was slightly less cell service at my house, I wouldn't be able to do my job, and I likely would have had to leave the state for lack of other housing options in my price range. Public Wi-Fi accessible outside the elementary school has been a godsend during the pandemic, and I wish that anybody in my situation would have more than one choice for internet. Currently, I am operating off of cellular data, and you know, if there was just one other choice, it would be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Could everyone hear that? Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
Mike, we have Mike Klein.
Okay, Mike Klein.
Yeah, is this we currently have a DSL and it works pretty good. Is that going to make is DSL eventually going to go away? Is it still going to be available?
Yes, I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, I think the question was, he's happy with his DSL. Can he stay there? Yeah. I mean, we have no intention of anytime soon taking down the existing network. There will come a point where, not today, not tomorrow, many years down the road, we'll want to see customers move over to fiber just to simplify network maintenance. But for the foreseeable future, if you're happy with your DSL, stay there and pay the current rates that you're paying today.
Well, we live on an old
Yes, sir.
Gilsum Road. We're about
Oh,
half a
sorry.
mile. We live on Old Gilsum Road. We're about a half a mile from the U.S. Cellular Tower, which I believe has DSL, fiber optic rather. And would we still be able to get fiber optic connection and still use a DSL?
So would they be able to get fiber optics but still use your DSL service? Is that correct?
he's just using his cell phone playing with his internet.
I think he's worried about the US cell tower that exists on our road. We have that tower on our road.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what that is.
Do you need me to unmute Mike or?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could get fiber optic run-in to use with DSL.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Okay, he wants to know if he can get the fiber optics from his house, but still use DSL, I believe.
Can you, Mike, you're asking if you can use the fiber optic network, but get
The
DSL also?
Well, just to, rather than the copper lines with the DSL, could the fiber optic be run in for that same service?
Can you?
Run DSL off of fiber optic, is what he wants to know.
Uh,
So if you have fiber optics running to your house, you sign up for a year, and you decide you want to go back to DSL, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, if you have DSL today and you want to go to fiber and then go back to DSL, yeah, we would do that. I would bet no, it would have to go back to copper again. Two totally different technologies. Yep.
If you can use the fiber optics for DSL.
So think about it. It really is the same technology, right? We're delivering internet access either over a copper cable or over a fiber optic cable. The difference between the two really is reliability and capacity. The DSL cable, as a general rule, I mean, distance is going to matter, but you're going to be between 3 megabits per second and call it 80 megabits per second. On a fiber optic cable, you're going to go up to 10 gigabits per second symmetrical. So it's just exponentially more capacity. So, but it delivers exactly the same internet, just uses a different type of technology.
Okay, go here next. Yes, sir.
I'm definitely a big fan of the potential opportunity to have fiber optic. We moved to town in spring, and it's been really tough to work because I use a program called GIS, which is a mapping software, and I have to remote into my office in Concord, and I can't do it. So I've had to change around a good chunk of the hours I put in my job into other things because of it. So that's been challenging. But my main question here is we actually live at the end of Reed Road, so most of the road is actually in Marlow. It starts in Marlow, and then there's 3 houses on the end in Gilsum. And when we bought the house, there was nothing anywhere on our deed, or no one ever told us that our road after where it ends in Marlow and goes into Gilsum is actually class 6. We currently have consolidated DSL. I'm wondering, you say that it would go to all Gilsum residents, would it go to us? Because apparently we don't get a lot. No one told us that's a class 6 road, so.
Okay, so the question is, the speaker lives at the end of Reed Road. It's a class 6 portion. He currently has DSL. Would he be able to get fiber on a class 6 road?
So I probably can't answer your question outright because I don't know specifically where your address is. I can tell you 2 things though. One of the things that we do on where we build, especially for town builds like this, is we always focus on the town residents. So one of the things that we do in working with the town is say, give us a list of every address in town so we know we're hitting 100% of the addresses. That's first and foremost. Second, class 6 roads, we work with class 6 roads all the time. I will tell you that sometimes class 6 roads take us a little longer to install because they typically have longer lanes and longer cable runs to get out. But we cover all the town residents, whether they're on a class 6 road or on the main interstate or the main highway.
Yeah, I mean, we can see our neighbor's house next door, and they're technically not class 6, and they're on the same consolidated line with us too.
Yeah, I would guess that yes, we probably would. So we have a situation in a number of towns where, and I can think of some right now where we're building, where we have residents in the adjacent community that say, hey, we want service too, you're building right there. Our initial focus is going to build everybody in the town because that's our commitment to build the town. Then we'll move out from there. So I would say that odds are pretty high that even if you're not specifically a Gilsum resident, you probably get service.
So if Marlow goes forward to their deal.
Yeah, you'd be covered both ways. Okay. Exactly.
See you guys later.
Yeah. You need to figure out where you vote is what you need to do.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, any other questions here? Yes, sir.
So, first of all, I'd like to commend the whole committee and all their work. I know any committee work in town is thankless, so thank you. It seems like we're here for information, it all sounds good, but the final vote is going to be with the select board. So not to put anyone on the spot, but I'd just like to know what the pros and cons are from the board of select people, whether they're in favor of this or opposed to it, because it seems like a good idea.
Yeah, that they'll be voting at the after all the question and answer session is here, and we'll still be here, and I'll be opening it up to Tim to take control of the meeting. Yes, Bart.
So just want to ask, during the hearing, is that allowed for public comment? The
This,
bond hearing.
the bond hearing, I believe it would be. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Okay.
There's a couple
Yes.
people online that want to speak to.
Okay. Next question.
We have 2 people online who'd like to speak. Do you have the Vicky?
Wait,
Yes.
Did
Yes,
you
Pedro,
unmute them?
Roger?
Hi.
Hey, Roger.
Hey, how you doing, Rob? Hey, this might be more appropriate for the selectmen, but I just wanted to share a couple thoughts if I can for a moment. And, you know, just two perspectives. And some of you may know I do a lot of work politically in the country now and outside of the country with the government. And, you know, having this idea that we can get 81% of our unserved people in this community served is just incredible, because even when electricity was new years ago, and that was before my time, of course, it was a little controversial. You know, do we want to get involved in this? But one of the great things is, on a larger scale, our country needs this, because we want to be competitive with other countries around the world. And most of the developing countries in the world, including some of our adversaries, are really committed to giving as many people as they can high-speed internet. So they realize that that's a way to build strength within a country and a government. So I got that political hat on. I don't want us to lag behind. So I think it's so critical from our nation's point of view that we all get high-speed internet for the future of the world. And secondly, just down to the local thing, I was a selectman for many years in Gilsum years ago. I live in Gilsum, of course. And, you know, I commend the selectmen and the committee for doing this work, because I know it's a lot of work and we can't please everybody. But the thing we can do tonight is really, and now I'm talking to the selectmen, it's so critical that we allow everybody to vote freely on this question. I mean, now more than ever in our country, we want public voting to be completely free from any disruption. So really encourage everyone just to make sure we get to vote on this and see what the town wants. And great job, everybody. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Roger.
Anna Saavedra.
Anna Saavedra.
Thank you so much. Honestly, Roger just said exactly what I've been thinking. And I feel like small towns are so much in jeopardy and so much at risk of being left behind in this case. You know, we're so lucky that because of this technology, many of us have businesses where we've been able to spin on a dime and keep doing our work through this pandemic. And, you know, if you don't have internet, you're left behind. So the pandemic highlighted it, but even before the pandemic, people in small towns were getting left behind. So please at least make it possible for those of us who need it over the next 5 years before Elon Musk makes his dream reality around here. Whether or not that's any better doesn't matter. We need it now, not later. Thank you so much for doing this work.
Thank you.
Chip?
Was that me? Hi, Chip Chapman, resident for 25 years, property owner 36 years. This, to me, it feels like rural economic development, and we don't want to stagnate. I run my business out of the house. I know a lot of other people in town that do. I just want to tell a story as well. We built a house, we moved in the new house, we rented the apartment in our other house to a young couple. Fabulous people, double income, no kids. She's a teacher and he works for a land trust over in Brattleboro. They're both working at home. They get here in the time of the year when the copper lines don't do very well. In the warmer months, the moisture, the rodents, the insects, you name it, there's a lot of problems. It goes down. They were pulling their hair out. She's a teacher. She's teaching kids. And because of the pandemic, there's no way to teach them unless you can be online. And whether or not the pandemic is going to be over soon or it's going to take longer, there's going to be kids learning online. There's going to be adults learning online. There's going to be people, probably more people than ever after this is over, working from home. We need this. I wish maybe we could take a poll right now of all the people here tonight and see how many people are in favor of it. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thanks, Chip. Yes, Mark.
Yes, good evening. How many people do you expect households to sign up for your service?
The question is, how many people does CCI expect to sign up for service?
So as a general rule, I'll frame it two ways. In areas where there is competition that is already delivering up to 1 gig, so typically like a cable competition, we usually split the market equally. So over time, we'll take about 40 or 45%. There's usually 10 or 15% of residents who just don't buy internet at all for whatever reason. In areas where there is no 1 gig competition, it's going to be higher than that. It's usually in the upper 50s to lower 60% range, and they're still up much to my chagrin, right? We have areas where just killer fiber optic service, and we still have people subscribing to satellite for whatever kind of crazy reason. So it'll vary between, call it 45% to low 60s, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Do you have a number of households in this town?
Oh, number of households in this town. So I'd blend the average, you're probably looking at somewhere around 300, something like that.
300
Yeah.
households are going to sign up?
Yeah.
There's 356 households in town.
Right. Yep.
So you think all 300 are going to 56 are not going to?
No, I think it's going to be lower than that. I don't know what the vacancy factor is. So assuming a vacancy factor of, call it 10 or 15%, it's going to be lower than 300. It's probably going to be 260, 250 to 275 is probably close.
Yeah, because I'm just doing some simple math, and you're saying $567,125 dollars for our bond, and you're charging $11. So you'll need 214 people to sign up to pay that off in 20 years without interest.
Correct.
Could you repeat that so people at home can hear?
Oh, I don't know that I can repeat all of his numbers.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I just, mine is a financial thing. I'm wondering how's this going to pay out for you? Are you going to be able to make this payment, and what happens when if you don't?
Right. So Mark is saying that for the bond amount, CCI, by his calculation, would need to sign up
We have 214 households.
214 households in order to be able to cover the cost of the bond.
That's without any interest charges on that. That's
Without
just
interest.
your money.
Okay.
Yeah, you're pretty close. Yeah, 214 is going to be pretty darn close. So look at a couple of things. From our perspective, it's not just the cost of revenue, it's also cost of maintenance. Copper is an incredibly expensive technology to maintain because it is so susceptible to rain and wind and water. So every time we roll a field technician out on a trouble ticket, that's one fewer new install he's doing somewhere else. So there's a pretty substantial maintenance cost savings for us, not just in terms of people, but also in terms of equipment. The older the equipment in the field, the more it is for us to pay maintenance costs on those. Newer fiber technology, much simpler architecture. It's a lot flatter with fewer pieces of electronics in the mix. So for us, fiber is absolutely a cost saver. So it's not just necessarily the economics of 214 subscribers to pay the bond. It's also the savings that we get in maintenance as well.
Thank you, Rob. From my own experience, I have Comcast. They just jacked my rates up without telling me last week. I had to go through a rigmarole on the phone. I got another quote unquote deal. But the problem I have with Comcast is the upload speeds are really slow. And I work with graphics and large files, and some of the stuff that I need to back up, it takes a full day. So I would probably go with one of these plans unless Comcast responds with something better on their uploads. Okay.
Elliot?
Yes,
Elliot
thank
Kaplan.
you. Elliot Kaplan, let's see, 17 years here. I work down at Monadnock Regional High School, and I will say, you get definitely this available. I'm taking it just because even without the pandemic and doing work at home and trying to get stuff ready for school and to get stuff uploaded and downloaded, I have DSL, and the time it slows down to an absolute crawl. It is really difficult. I don't see any downside to this. I can only see the upside to it. It's going to help our students at all levels. It's going to help the businesses. personally, don't take this personally, I think it's a no-brainer to put it on the ballot, and I think we should go from there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, hi, I've been here 5 years in Gilsum, and I'm out at the end of one of the roads, and I've had to call, it was Fairpoint before, and then Consolidated came in, but no matter what it is, we've had to call them countless times to come out. And my question is, what about lightning? Because we get a lot of light, when we have light, I have to shut everything down to make sure that when we go through a lightning storm, that copper gets zapped and then it blows out my modem. And I'm down for sometimes 5-6 days.
The question is lightning storms and how they can cause surges that come in and blow out the modem on the DSL. Would that be different with fiber?
That's a great question. So I'm going to give you the non-electrical engineer answer. I can tell you that since there's not going to be any copper coming to your house, this is glass, it won't conduct any electricity through your house. Now, that doesn't say that your power line, or if you have a cable drop coming through, that those won't as well. I would always recommend shutting your equipment down during a lightning storm, but fiber optic lines will not conduct electricity that I'm aware of, but I'm not an electrical engineer. But there's no metallic element of that to conduct electricity into.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I just wanted to add, I actually am on staff here at the Gilsum School. And so I was Zooming last March, and like you said, I often could not have a Zoom meeting within my own home, and I had to go to the library, come to the parking lot here, we'll stop in the library. In the school, I've had to Zoom students in Gilsum as a resident, and those students have been bumped out of Zoom. So I totally get that this whole community needs this system to be in place. It would be a great benefit.
Thank you. So the comment is that you live in another road, can't even do Zoom, and you work for the school. Okay.
I was just gonna follow.
Hi. Hang on, Georgia, 1 second, I jumped again.
Sure. Hi, this is Karen Wheeler, and I just wanted to follow up since someone spoke. We've had 2 teachers that live in Gilsum and also work for the school district. And I'd like to say it is a big problem for our residents in Gilsum and our kids trying to Zoom over classes. My children frequently get dropped out of their Zoom calls. I've got one in college, and that one's even more difficult because there's so many people on those large classrooms when he's trying to do his schoolwork. So it would be a huge benefit to the school and the school community. Thank you.
Okay. Georgia.
Hi, my name is Georgia. I live on Centennial Road in Gilsum, just me. I run a nonprofit and a business in Keene, and usually we meet in person. So I've been relying heavily on my internet, and it would only make sense to make the switch. This is only gonna bring a lot of people relief if we could all just get up to speed. I'm curious as to like how far behind the times are we in relativity to the rest of this country and world. As far as I think we're like so far behind. So we just really need to catch up. This is an amazing presentation. I can tell how much work was put into it, Rob and the committee. Thank you so much for doing this for our town. I don't think you would have done this if it wasn't valuable. So thank you. And please support this. It's the right thing for us.
Yeah. And we should thank the selectmen because they formed this committee.
Oh, thanks, select people.
Just to read the names in support of moving this forward. We have a lot of Zoom people commenting.
Sure. Do you want to do that, Jan?
Sure, in support. Okay.
Actually, you'd have to come over here to do it. 'Cause people won't be able to hear you. Actually, they can hear you because you're on Zoom.
Yeah.
Or you're just gonna read.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, you just count them all, or read them.
Okay. And then we'll have to turn the meeting over to Tim.
Let's see. So I was quickly going to read off, somebody had on the Zoom meeting in the chat said,
before the select board decides whether or not to bring this to town, could we poll the people here tonight to see how many of us are in support? Well, we can count together, I guess. Georgia said I'm in full support. Emily said I'm in support. Tom said he was in support for bringing the bond to vote for the Gilsum citizens. Tom Julius.
Okay.
Let's see. Anna said she's in support, and there's 3 votes in her household. Abby Hamilton, support. Elliot Kaplan, support. Sang, support. Virginia Clark is in support. Brenda Topher is in support. Barbara Bryce is support for this coming up to town for a vote. Roger Weinrich supports. Cameron Lounder says he's in support of this. He's building a new house on Surrey Road and wants fiber optic internet. Barbara Ware is in favor and feels it can't happen fast enough. And then a couple of these are duplicates, so I'm skimming. Cameron said that there's 2 other people watching with him, Clem and Marie Lounder, and they're also in support. Ann Clark said that the Clark family is in support. They could have used it 20 years ago. It has been very difficult to run their business since a typical day upload for us has 5 hours with current technology. Anna said that Mike Bartlett from the same household is in support. Janine, the Conservation Commission, she personally sees fiber as allowing us to retain our rural character, which is important to the residents. And then I think Mike Klein is in support.
And also Chip Chapman just sent a private message.
Oh, okay. And Chip Chapman sent a private message? And
Yeah,
who?
Chip Chapman.
Thank you, everyone.
Karen, anyone against?
No one's against online.
Okay.
It's 22.
We're up to 26, actually.
Okay. We are past when I was supposed to turn the meeting back to Tim. I'm sorry, Tim. I ran you a few minutes over. And at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Tim. The select board will confer. They'll decide what they want to do in terms of voting for public benefit. If they decide there is public benefit, then they will then go into a bond hearing where you also will be, it will be open to public comment. And I will try to adjust the laptop here so that you can see the select board. Tim?
Tim, excuse me, they're asking, could you come up to the microphone so the people on Zoom can hear you? Thank you.
And Tim, I can put some tables there and just put the laptop in front of you all so that you can deliberate and ask for input, whatever you want to do.
I myself, I'm all set to move it forward.
Okay, should we go there? I mean, we could move this. I don't know what's easier.
I don't know about you guys, I received multiple emails today.
Yeah, me too.
Some would be sent to me, but I think a lot of them were sent to me, you guys do. And everyone I got was positive. There was one email I had gotten that she's in favor of it. She don't believe she's gonna get it. She don't believe that they're going to do as they say and bring it to her house. She feels that she's gonna be too far away. But I know where she's at, and I know my mother is up further, so they'll be getting up that way. So I had all positive feedback all day long. And
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I knew last week that to me it was a no-brainer that I feel it should be go out to the warrant article and look at town, decide whether or not we go through with it. So I'd like to move it forward.
With you.
One thing I didn't hear brought up tonight, but came up at the first public benefit hearing was the issue of customer service with CCI. I actually, before the first hearing, I had several people say to me when they found out that we were going or we were considering CCI for this project, are you nuts? Their customer service is challenging at best. And I've thought a lot about that because a lot of people talked about that being a concern. And, you know, with all these towns getting up and running with fiber, how is CCI going to be able to handle all of that customer service? But I feel like even if the customer service remains exactly the same as it is now, there's still a huge public benefit. For people individually working in their homes or accessing healthcare or whatever. But also, if we don't do it, I just see Gilsum as this little antiquated town that's going to be left behind while everybody is moving forward. And I just feel like it would be better for business and also, honestly, I kind of feel like who are the three of us to decide for an entire town that this isn't a positive thing or a negative thing. I feel like it should be left to the residents of the town to make a decision about whether this makes sense or not. So I'm in favor of it.
I did talk to a couple of guys last week after the meeting, and they are definitely going to be working on that. You know, it's more training for the people, and they got a goal that they're shooting for, and they hope to get people more trained and have less problems.
Yeah.
And especially going with fiber, I imagine there'd be less problems anyway.
Did you have anything you want to say, Mark?
No, I spoke to quite a few people too, and they had a lot of concerns about how it was going to be paid off, you know, financially wise. And I heard about the lousy service. So, I mean, there's a silent majority in this town too that doesn't agree with this, but I'll okay with it to go to vote. So,
and as far as the pay off, again, that was explained the last meeting. They're going to charge $11, and if come year 15 they see that it's not going to pay off the bond, it's on them.
as long as that's the case, I just don't want to see somebody that doesn't have the money to pay their taxes as it is. Because last year, the group of us got lambasted with people that were worried about their taxes, okay?
Really?
Just for trying to help out some people with some insurance issues and stuff and some other issues. So if the tax rate starts increasing, that's what I'm worried for. And these people that can't afford it are going to be screaming at us. So, but it's the vote of the town. If they want to go for it, go for it.
So do you need
So
to make a motion?
I'm gonna say, I make a motion that we move forward with it and move into the bond hearing.
I second that. All in favor?
All in
agree
favor?
with it, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So we'll go into the bond hearing.
Jim, if you want, I can put a couple of those desks there. I could just put this in front of you so that you can get on the stand up here. What would you like to do?
I don't know, your question going, but the question going to be for the selectmen or?
I think so, yeah. Well, it's a public bond hearing, so the public there'd be a portion of the meeting that you would open up for questions. I don't know if you want to do that at the beginning or.
We want to open up questions now?
Okay, at this time, we're going to start the bond hearing. And the select board will be opening up for questions regarding the bond issue. The bond issue is for $567,125. Okay. We need to adjourn the meeting?
We need to adjourn the public business.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
This select board.
Okay.
And then opens the-
I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing at 7:38.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion moves. And now we're opening for bond hearing. I make a motion to open for bond hearing. All in favor? So now we're open for questions again. I'm gonna grab my warrant article. So any questions on the bond? I'll try to do my best on answering.
Questions on? No questions right now.
What's that?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
Pushing, I applaud the selectmen for going with the recommendation by the committee. We spent a lot of time. I appreciate that you listen to the citizenry of allowing them the opportunity to vote yea or nay on this proposal. I really appreciate it. I think that was wonderful y'all did that.
Well, they've done a lot of work. You know, they're the ones that did all the work, not the selectmen. We just
I appreciate
appointed them
listening
and
to that. I appreciate that we as citizens have an opportunity to vote yea or nay on it. So thank you very much.
so am I gonna have to do the whole warrant article? Can we get that one?
I think you probably want to read it, and then you would vote to accept the wording, and then to vote to actually move it forward to the warrant.
Are the other two selectmen seeing the warrant?
Yeah.
Need to read it at all or?
Tim, do you want me to read that?
I think it's a good idea, so everybody knows what's going on. Yeah.
I've read through it.
Okay. Did you want to read it here, or do you want me to do it, or whatever you want?
Well, you'd probably just read it better, but I can read it. I may mispronounce a couple words, but
Yeah, just move it a little closer to the microphone. There you go.
to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $863,376 for the purpose of furnishing, constructing, and installing facilities and equipment to make available throughout the town of Gilsum a 1 gigabyte fiber to the premises fiber optic broadband network by Consolidated Communications Enterprise Services Incorporated with $567,125 of such sum to be raised through the assurance of bonds or notes under and compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33-1, as amended, and $296,151 of such sums as a donation from Consolidated to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, gifts, and donations, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. Both the Select Board and Budget Committee recommend this article. 3/5 ballot vote required. That's a long warrant article. Dave's gonna need a drink of water after that.
Tim, you might want to mention that that was actually drafted by the bond attorney.
Okay. So this bond was created by Attorney Renell Julio. Amounts added by the BBC and final submitted for review by Renell on January 19th, 2021. Approved by bond attorney on January 21st, 2021. And this warrant article, because it's a bond, it's going to be voted on first at the town meeting. Yes.
Will, at the town meeting, will, because of the pandemic, will they have open for online voting from Zoom, or how's that gonna work?
Don't know yet. You know, I heard the wind this morning about canceling town meeting this year. So, don't know.
Postpone, possibly.
Yeah. I'm not sure. So that will be something that we'll have to look into, and so I don't even know how we would even begin with that. You know, as it is now with what Rob has, I think he only has, what, 16, 17 people available to Zoom in. And so I'm not even sure what we would do if we can find somebody to, I have no idea how that even works.
The other problem is that it has to be a paper ballot. It has to be a paper ballot.
Yes.
It would have to be a paper ballot.
We do, because we have to check everybody in. The supervisor and checklist have to check everybody in because it's gonna be a bond and whatever, that's the law.
It has to be open for 1 hour.
And I mean, so like, yeah, if we do have town meeting, it's gonna be recommended to bring this to the first article, like moving ahead, because we have to keep the ballot box open for an hour. And if this is the last thing, we don't wanna be here for now.
I think legally it has to be first.
Does it have to be first? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So who makes that choice on whether or not we cancel our town meeting or hold it?
We'll be discussing that next Monday night at our next selectmen's meeting, and we'll discuss it with our moderator and yeah.
Maybe just, maybe you could have like, a car come up outside like they do with the COVID shot, you know what I mean? And, or the testing, like I get a needle stuck on my nose.
Mhm.
You can have it right outside, come by, and, yeah, that's right, you can have somebody do that.
Well, look at the whole gymnasium. Yeah, we're not even using even half of it right now. We can spread chairs out pretty good. Yes.
I'm not positive, but something to look into. I believe you can hold a bond hearing vote not at the same time as town meeting. It can be a special meeting if we decided to postpone the town meeting portion. My understanding on town meeting though is the same as deliberative, because we need the checklist ladies and the moderator here. People can't vote over Zoom. So, but we could probably do something like you said with just the ballot for the bond article where it was just cars driving up. If we did have to postpone the town meeting portion, at least we could do the bond vote ahead of time. Just food for thought.
Yeah, that'll be some things to look into.
Jim, can I say something? So we have about half of what our typical attendance is for town meetings. Would you like to take a quick poll and see if people are interested in postponing town meeting?
Yeah.
I think it needs to be discussed.
We'll discuss it.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the wording on the warrant article as written. If you two are fine with it. So all in favor? The selectmen are fine with the way the warrant article is written. And if there's no further other questions, then
Just for clarification, because the attorney is very precise, can you, although you approved the warrant article for the bond, we actually need a vote to move the bond forward and then the vote for the warrant article, if I'm remembering correctly, Ralph.
Right.
So, yeah, so we do need the vote for to approve the bond, to go to town meeting, and then you vote to approve the warrant article.
I thought we already voted to move it forward.
They just voted to,
We moved it forward so we come into the bond hearing.
did we just vote on the wording or not?
You voted
Yes.
on the wording, but you didn't actually vote on the
Now,
bond.
now you need to move forward and say that the select board approves or does not approve moving this for consideration with town warrant.
Yeah, well, we'd already done that, but worded a little differently. I'd like to make a motion to move the bond forward to go be presented to a town meeting in March. All in favor? Aye. Is there anything else we need to do now?
I don't think so. Thank you, Tim. Thanks to the Board of Selectmen, and thanks everyone for coming. I want to just point out that there's an article in the newspaper today, in the Keene Sentinel. It says, Sununu says town meetings can be postponed. I think that's what people were referring to here. And we'll be waiting to hear from the select board as to what the ramifications are for town meeting on March 10th. Are there any parting questions from anyone?
Thanks for what you did.
Yeah, yeah. Great work, select board, great work, committee.
I have a question. Georgia here,
Like to
can you
make a
hear me?
motion to close the meeting? Yeah. 7:52. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll also have some informational sessions between now and town meeting. Those will be just Zoom meetings, regular Zoom meetings.